And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Buddy, only 2 more weeks until you get to take that hat off, and you'll never, ever have to wear it again.
I thought that's not where I thought you were going with that, but yeah, I get to take this stupid hat off. Okay, one quick thing, and I'm not going to let this go on a tangent. So I went on a rabbit hole of playing Road to Glory. I was a running back at Nebraska, and the blocking for Nebraska sucked. So I entered the portal, and the only good team that would take me that had a good offensive line was LSU. And LSU still sucks. So it was a bad decision because nobody's freaking blocking for me. But yeah, I have to wear.
You did.
I'm in an LSU uniform.
School. You did. Well, first off, it's good to get you there. I went back and did Road to Glory. Mm-hmm. I wanted to at least try it. I just beat. You can ask Ben. I just beat Ole Miss in triple overtime, 32-31.
Sure.
You should know what it's like for losing to me in the waning seconds of college football 25. And I wear number 7. They're gonna put my banner inside of Death Valley. It's been glorious. Glad that you've come over to the dark side. You know what one team I won't play with on college football 25?
Michigan.
I was going to say Michigan. I actually do like their playbook because I like going old school, run it down your throat, give the big O lineman some fullback in there. You know I love that. But even on the video game, I don't think they could have recreated all the cheating that was going on in Ann Arbor. We got to talk about it, Joe. The time, it seems, the time for due process has come to play here now that they have evidence. I think Michigan's in big trouble, buddy.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really excited. Excited's not the right word. I really want to see this documentary, the Netflix one. Because
you could say you're excited to see it. I mean, I'm excited to see it.
Well, I'm excited to see it, but it's just a weird tone for what I was trying to say. I think that documentary is going to provide some really important context here because what was highlighted in the ESPN article this morning is that Stalions has absolutely refused to all hell to communicate and participate in this investigation. The only person he told shit to was he shouldn't, and he has no intention of seemingly going back to coaching at the NCAA level. The only people he told was apparently this Netflix documentary team that is supposed to be coming out soon. So I want to know from his perspective what he was doing. I'm hoping that there's no holding back from that production crew and that they actually paint him to be the psycho that he actually is. But the other side of this,
is he a psycho or was he taking orders? Because
that's what I'm kind of curious on.
At this exact moment, and in case you missed it, there was an article that came out today from Pete Thelma of ESPN that they received, or they got the statements from the the NCAA didn't give them the forms. They have obtained a form and a statement that's going to be released and potentially on a notice of allegations from the NCAA to Michigan. Joe, Sharon Moore is now the new head coach that Harbaugh left. Should we get into this right now, or should we wait? Because
let's wait. Let's wait until after the break because it's going to be a long conversation.
Nevertheless, just in case you missed what has happened today, we're going to get to Michigan and the cheating scandal. What I was going to say, Joe, Sharon Moore deleting 52 texts to the kid is pretty blatant that he was involved. I mean, why would you delete him? Like, what are you covering up?
There's a smoking gun. I'm not going to deny this. I know that I have been an apologist for the crimes, quote, crimes. I've been a bit of an apologist for what they did, but there is a smoking gun. There couldn't be any more proof, it sounds like. And the punishment seems like they're being very aggressive. I think it was what's the most extreme degree that the NCAA can deliver for a punishment? Is it the first one or level 1 violation?
Level 1 violation. So Sharon Moore's getting hit with a level 2, but in case you didn't, in case you missed,
level 1 was mentioned in the article. That was
hold on. He's a repeat offender, and a repeat offender within 5 years. That means it can turn into a level 1, and he can be in real trouble. Now, will they suspend him? Like what all do they do there? It's chaos. But Joe, I got an interesting take about this. Some teams are going to be included in this, not named Michigan, South Carolina. And if I'm Hendon Hooker, where I tore my ACL, so the alleged is what probably is going to come out is that Michigan shared footage on Tennessee, okay, to South Carolina the year that the game that Hendon Hooker tore his ACL.
Was this in the article?
Listen to this. 13, quote unquote, that they filmed 13 other potential future opponents, meaning playoff teams. Tennessee would have been in that fold. So if I'm Hendon Hooker, why wouldn't I sue the shit out of Michigan after I got injured if you shared some shit with South Carolina the game that you beat us down? Joe, this shit could get very deep. Now, Joe, not 13 opponents that they were going to play, 13 potential opponents that they could play. So there's a massive difference of what Pete Thamel is reporting. We will get to Michigan. We also got to go down to the Big 12. Joe and I are making our picks. We'll give you our power rankings 1 through 16 from the Big 12. Who do we both have winning it? I'm starting to feel better about two teams. I don't know if I don't know in the Big 12. The Big 12 is so wide open to me. I don't know anymore, Joe.
Well, that's what got really annoying when I was doing this map out. I feel like you can get pretty confident. I think you and I are pretty confident on like who the top 3 are, maybe even the top 2. You have a different second team, which was surprising to me. But when you try to do that 5 through like 10, you could just put a bunch of names in a hat, jumble them up, and then throw them out there, and you could probably get them right. There is not much of a separation between those teams, which is great. It's going to be competitive in the middle of the day when we're watching those slates. The whole point is, though, is that most of those teams are not good enough to go to the playoff. That's a whole separate conversation and argument. But to the point of parity means fun games. It's not going to be like watching the ACC, watching Boston College slop around with Syracuse for 3 hours.
4 through 9, I could make the argument that you can interlock any one of them and you won't get a complaint out of me, which you're probably not going to get a complaint out of me tonight. I'm probably going to concede to what a lot of you say 4 through 9. I think it's 1, 2, and 3 for me that I'm pretty gung-ho about, that I'm just I can't get past. So we'll talk about the Big 12 as well. Joe, it's ironic because it was like we were fortune tellers, maybe your boy here, when so to everybody that doesn't know our pre-production, Joe sends in all the topics and I'm just probably pretty much like, okay, let's roll with it. On Wednesday, I told Joe we need to talk about Tennessee recruiting, and all of a sudden the 2026 5-star number 1 overall recruit Faizon Brandon, the quarterback, has committed to Tennessee.
I know, so shocking that he committed. We'll see if we end up having time to get to that with how loaded today's show is. But man, Heupel, I don't even think we need to repeat ourselves what we said on that Wednesday show, that Tennessee is putting together a ridiculous quarterback room, ridiculous future offense. If he stays committed and he ends up going there, man, the lineage that they have at quarterback is ridiculously unbelievable. That kid is very, very gifted, and I'm really excited to see just his development. And if he lands there, it's a perfect fit.
Hot take. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I know that Hendon Hooker did not, got injured at the end of the year. I know that probably in Tennessee fandom, he won't go down as one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played there. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I'm not sure. Joe, he might have been the biggest player for the University of Tennessee football in the last 10 years, last 20 years.
You're saying
Hooker. Because when quarterbacks around the country, NIL or not, when quarterbacks around the country saw what Hendon Hooker was doing, they said, I might want to go take a look at Tennessee. So it's not missed on me that one of my favorite college football players of all time, Hendon Hooker, he's going to get his recognition here tonight, hopefully. So we do have a lot that we do have to get into here tonight, Joe, on this Sunday show. Elks already with a $5 super chat. you knew the Ohio State fans were going to come in here and really roll.
Well, we knew no. We knew Elks was going to be here first. We knew he was going to be the first one to put a super chat in. We knew he was going to come in firing today. We knew that.
You won't learn anything. Stallions won't say anything damning. He wrote a 150-page Michigan manifesto and won't hurt them in any way.
He's talking about the Netflix stock. I'm curious, man. I'm really curious to see if he shares anything. The only reason why I'm optimistic is if he wasn't going to say anything and he doesn't reveal anything, then he wouldn't have agreed to do the documentary. Right? He would have just said no if he wasn't going to be willing to communicate.
I think Netflix has done some very good content. However, when it comes to sports-related stuff, the Johnny Manziel one and the Florida one, let's be honest, sucked.
It's not hard-hitting. They're puff pieces.
I wanted to see. You know what everybody tuned in to see? Oh well, shit. What was it like with Aaron Hernandez at Florida? That's what they really wanted to tune in for. It wasn't all the bullshit that was behind it. Damn. They wanted to see if Tim Tebow, remember, because in the Aaron Hernandez documentary, Tebow was the one driving him. You got church going, Sunday school having Tim Tebow driving a.
Yeah. And we got none of that though. We got none of that context because, again, for whatever reason, Netflix does not want to really do the hard-hitting journalism thing. They just kind of want to do the, hey, this was fun. Remember this? That was the extent of all of them. Even the Teo one was pretty good. I think that the Manti Teo one did a pretty good job of uncovering
and that's
everything.
How they got you in. Did you notice that they didn't interview Brian Kelly?
I bet Brian Kelly said no.
I
think
would
that they didn't ask Brian Kelly.
Well, so interesting. Offhand, they asked him about it, and this didn't go like hit the media waves ever. Somebody in a press conference asked him about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'm gonna let that be. You know, he was one of my former players. It is what it is." And he was out of there, and I'm like, that ain't Brian Kelly. If you ever listen to that man's press conference, he's going to give a three-pronged political approach to how he attacks questions. This one was, okay, we're moving forward. I'm like, damn. Didn't even want. And you know what? I respect it in the sense that he didn't want to add any more fuel to the fire of a former player. That's how it came off to me. Anyway, all right. Let's get rolling. Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. If you're on Facebook, share to all of those groups, all of those social media pages. Joe, you went viral on Facebook again.
Wait, for what? What did I say? What did I do?
The Georgia fans actually were coming to defend you because the Florida fans got a hold of your Carson Beck video. And, it was like from 2 weeks ago. I just now checked. It was like 102,000 views. Florida fans in there arguing. Georgia fans in there arguing. Nobody cared about what you said, I don't think. Everybody was just in there arguing. It was like a full – I mean, there was one thread with 97 comments. So anyway, all right, if you're on YouTube, Joe over 7K, continue on our path to 10,000 here. Like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. But we got to talk about our good.
I'm just double checking. I'm just making sure. I thought you were going full steam ahead. It's just a precautionary. Sorry.
You can't even let a man get to a read. This is
I'm a bad co-host. I'm sorry. I thought you were going right to BetOnline.
Let's talk about our good friend Chris Gates. Joe, tell us about him.
Well, now all the attention is on Chris Gates. Was texting a little bit with him and over the weekend. And for anyone who wants to have the opportunity to do some of our favorite lifts from when we were playing college football, Chris is going to incorporate them in the upcoming August plan. So for me, I got deadlift in there. Blake, power clean is going to be put into the workout plan. But for those that don't know what we're talking about, Chris Gates Fitness, his online fitness training camp is a phenomenal way to get in shape. It is an online fitness community designed specifically for sports fans to help you get the results with your health and fitness without cutting out everything you love. Like when the season starts and you want to drink beer and tailgate on Saturdays. In training camp, you'll get all the support that you need to build muscle, burn fat, and stay consistent with your workouts. And at the same time, you'll join a community of like-minded people doing the same thing. I've seen a ton of people on Twitter talking about it. So some athletic people that work for the Athletic talking about and that are signed up for this. And the community just seems very expansive if you want to be a part of it. Visit chriscates.com/training camp or click the link in the description to learn more and sign up today. Use that code RuffinoJoe and get the first month for only $10.
We're back next. Stay with us. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. Just going to throw this out there. It's not even relevant. DJ LeMahieu, LSU GOAT, just walked it off for the Yankees. We were talking about Michael K earlier. LSU GOAT, baby, always supreme. Joe, I got to start with this and say this today with the Michigan stuff. Let me just run through what happened today, and then I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So here we go. In case you missed it, Michigan was in the news today. Pete Thamel, Joe, reporting a lot of things, that there were deleted texts from now head coach Jerome Moore to Connor Stallions, then was retrieved. Feels like a smoking gun there. It looks like he could be liable in a lot of the things that went down last year, but was the interim when Jim Harbaugh was suspended and now is the permanent head coach. He is facing multiple level 2 violations, a repeat violator, of the NCAA if this were to pass. 13 potential future opponents, Joe, will come back to that, that they filmed, 58 games that they filmed. And I think the most damning that was in the statement from the NCAA on a potential letter of notice of allegations is that Harbaugh was 49-26 before Stallions became on staff, 40-3 he was after. Joe, I got to admit, I'm pretty pissed off. Can I tell you why? Because I gave them the benefit of the doubt in saying, is that really that guy on the sidelines? Is it really him? Or were they really doing this? Because I go into stuff, I really try to go into things innocent until proven guilty. However, it's starting to be more blatant and obvious that all of this happened. Okay, the NCAA proved that it was Connor Stallions on the sidelines. By the way, NCAA comes out and says, we have no idea who gave him a sideline pass. Stop right there. You know who gave him a sideline pass? The coaching staff.
It was the guy who just got removed from the Central Michigan coaching staff.
Okay, again, coaching staff, easiest solvable thing of all time. Joe, it is pretty obvious. I saw this Ohio State podcast. Forgive me, I don't know their name. But I led off with this on AYS last week. Joe, they're breaking down film from 2022 of Connor Stallions standing behind the defensive coordinator Mentor saying, run right, looking at their signals, looking at a play card saying, run right. And then you have two safeties that are blitzing down to stop the run against Ohio State. Joe, Mentor may be a good DC. He ain't that goddamn good of being a DC. My point in all of this is, it's blatant obvious, and I got to ask the honest question. Is their national championship a joke?
Okay, so first of all, I'm already way past that point what you're talking about. It was obvious that they did it. I think from the jump, it was pretty clear that they did it before the notice of allegations does come out and this article came out. I never doubted that they did it for a second. Where I was an apologist and where I have received criticism from opposing fan bases is that I don't think what they did is really that big of a deal because it is something that is consistently done. We're rehashing the whole argument, the old argument, Blake. This is August. We're rehashing it, and I knew that this was going to happen. What they did was not a big deal. because it is something that is done across college football. They just did it
not
more effectively.
football.
They just did it more effectively and more deliberately than anybody else has done it. But the whole takeaway, I think, from this is, at the end of the day, what is the deserving severity of their punishment? You know, there's clearly, as I said earlier in the lead-in,
I'd
there's
strip
a
them
smoking
of a
gun.
national title.
I don't think that is completely warranted.
No, it is
I think
warranted,
that's an
because you're
extreme
gonna have to-
reaction.
You're going to have to convince me now that they have legitimate, and I mean legitimate evidence that they filmed and got 13 potential future opponents. They didn't say actual opponents. They said future opponents, which there's things that have been investigated between South Carolina and Tennessee, and potentially Michigan sharing some of that information with South Carolina. Joe, how do I know that they didn't have shit on Ohio State? Clearly they did. How do I know that they didn't have – hold on. How do I know that they didn't have shit against Alabama? How do I know that? Because this is what we do know. We also know that last year all of that data was not gone. You mean you're going to convince me that –
Wait. He pulled them – they wouldn't be – wait. Michigan wouldn't be that stupid to –
it's not Michigan.
In the middle of all of this –
No,
to then go back to that information.
No, but the NCAA came out in the investigation and said when Connor Stallions got caught, he pulled all the data. He brought them to a coach's house, the intern's house, the house of interns. Came back and hold on, please, hold on. Came back and retrieved it. And you're going to now tell me that Connor Stallions, who still went to football games, who still was at games. Joe, he was at the Rose Bowl. He took a picture and posted it online of him at the Rose Bowl. And you're going to tell me that there still wasn't shady shit going on. No, it's time to lay down the hammer.
Just because that information was shared right at the beginning of this being discovered does not mean that they used that information for the rest of the season. If that comes out in the investigation, I'll take my word back. But they would have to be so goddamn stupid to try and go back.
That's like telling me a dime piece walks through the door and I'm not going to take her on a date when she walks up to me and says, "What's up, Daddy?"
Okay. Well, okay. If you're for a perfect example, if you're caught, I don't know, if somebody's caught selling drugs or somebody's caught laundering money, they're going to stop doing that if they're being investigated for said crime. They're not going to keep doing it if they're known.
Psychopaths will not stop.
Also, Elks, to this point, they shared the information with other schools. That is a very key important part of this. Other schools knew that they were doing this. Most of the country clearly knew that they were doing this, or a good portion of it, because otherwise they wouldn't be sharing this information with those programs. I think it's just total BS that this concept of the way that they were doing it is so wrong. You know what happens, and what was brought up during this whole process was how if you steal the signs of one team by watching film through the angle that you set up your camera, and then you decipher those signals, that you can then go share it with your buddy who's on a different coaching staff to then have for their upcoming opponent. That happens across college football. The sharing of stolen signs happens across college football.
But you and I both know that there's no film of teams giving other teams film and their signals of other programs.
What?
The only way that Joe, when you break down an athlete in college and you're watching film, which is the same coach's film that these coaches are allowed to watch, these players are allowed to watch. Is there ever been any film of you seeing coaches giving hand signals on the sideline and you being in a situation where how did Brent Venables, who was notorious for sign stealing, how did he steal signs?
But he's not on trial here. But what he did is the same goddamn thing. It's the same goddamn thing. It is something that has just naturally been accepted.
Hole of Brent Venables. We can't go down the rabbit hole of this guy.
He's the same. He's the same person who's done. What do you mean we can't? We're talking about a murder trial here. We can't look at other examples of murder. Like what?
No. At some point, you got to come back and say, "Can we talk about them? What they did?" I don't care about what Brent Venables did. If I'm Michigan, or if I'm
same thing. We're talking about the concept of stealing signs.
Okay, Joe.
Clemson won national championships.
Hold on. Do you really believe that Ohio State fans are going to allow you to say that they care about when they watch this clip about what happened with Brent Venables? No, they want to know that Sharon Moore also was negligent in all of this, sending 52 text messages to Connor Stallion that he deleted and then had to go pay to get them re-put on his phone so that he could hand it over, and which makes it even more incompetent that he legitimately gave them a working phone.
Well,
Why
okay,
would
also
you do that?
just a side, not tangent on this, but the biggest thing that I think I come away from this is less about is what they did wrong or not. It's they're screwed. Like that's whatever the punishment is, whatever, if it is as severe as vacating wins. Wait 1 second. If it's as severe as them vacating wins or as minimal as game suspensions, whatever it ends up being, this is a lot more serious than I think that we thought originally last week in terms of how the NCAA is looking at it. They're clearly out to get them. I'm not saying that it's unjustified. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm just trying to point out here is that Michigan, it's going to be a big hammer that's brought down on them. Forget the argument that we were just having for a second. The talking point here is now the NCAA is not going to play with this. That article that Pete Thamel wrote very clearly illustrated how aggressively this is going to be handled. I mean, they moved pretty damn quickly for something that is elaborate as this to have a potential punishment coming up, or not a potential punishment, but the full notice of allegations that they are able to prove what they did wrong.
What you keep bringing up their punishment. What do you think their punishment should be?
I think that it should just be a multi-game suspension for Sharon Moore. I think that is
all.
Fair.
That's all.
I don't think vacating wins is a completely fair thing to do because
I agree with you on the vacated wins
because they're just going to step up and say that all of these other programs are doing a variation of what we did. Why do we have to vacate wins? That's what they're arguing.
No, I don't like vacating wins because of completely different circumstance. The games were played on the field, but I don't mind national championships getting revoked when you cheated. Like if it comes out to pass that it did happen. Joe, come on. You're not going to be able to convince me that they didn't still have stuff on other teams. I'm sorry, you can't. You cannot convince me that when they made their playoff run. And Joe, here's the damning thing. Here's a very damning thing. If you're Harbaugh, think about this. He was 49-26 before Connor Stallions was there. After Connor Stallions was on the staff at Michigan, Joe, he went 40-3. 40-3. So there comes a point where you don't want to vacate wins. Well, Joe, did Harbaugh become Nick Saban overnight?
Understandable. Okay, that part is understandable.
If you don't want to vacate wins, if you don't want to go through this national championship strip, which is fine, it happened. I get it. But at the same time, the dude legit became a top 2 head coach in the country.
We can't act like we can't already act like he wasn't an established coach. This isn't somebody who came out of the woodwork.
Joe,
he was a winner at Stanford. He was a winner with the 49ers.
State. Before they beat Ohio State and got to a playoff, what were we talking about with them?
We were talking about how Harbaugh was underperforming.
And he shouldn't be on the hot seat. That was a legitimate take that everybody had because he wasn't meeting their expectations. All of a sudden, Joe, they became a prestige program overnight. Let me remind you of something very quickly. Georgia had the same exact record that they did.
Okay, but then we need to have the same energy when we're talking about programs that are known for doing this. And again, I'm going to bring up Brent Venables and I'm going to bring up what he did for Clemson. Because that was talked about when they were winning national titles. And that was overnight. That absolutely was overnight. Their turnaround, they were never a national championship.
Joe, their defense is still really good. Did they still have a top 10 defense last year?
They are, but they're not. Were they a top 10 defense? They are, but they're not the same as the same level that they were on that national championship run. They were unstoppable in some of those games that they had when they were winning national titles.
Did the NCAA hit him with cheating?
No.
Okay.
No,
so
because
I'm
there was
not
no
gonna talk
rivalry
about
as vindictive as the one that they have with Ohio State
then
that was
where's
going
your
to try and
proof?
do this.
Well, let me ask you this. Where's your proof on
It's talked about it by everybody. It was talked about on the goddamn broadcast of those games.
Okay. Where is your proof that, like, so for example, I'm legitimately telling you that we have proof on Michigan, and you want to go back to Venables. There is no proof on Venables that we have at the current moment, is there? No.
There's not currently proof of.
Oh, Joe,
wait. There's no proof because they weren't investigated, because they didn't need to be investigated, because it's a concept that is done constantly across college football.
Again, it's not my responsibility for whatever reason. And here's another thing. It was during an old administration with the NCAA. There's new people coming in. It's not my fault somebody chose not to enforce something. But you know what else I don't have? I don't have anybody at Clemson on an opposing team sideline. I don't have any one of their staff doing that. None. Zero. Zilch. I have Connor Stallions. I have Harbaugh as a top 3 head coach in the country. After
he obviously did it. He obviously did it. That's not the conversation.
So then what's your penalty? A couple of game suspension for a coach that we know violated it?
I think that if Sharon Moore is suspended, it should be for the entirety of the season, if not half of the season, because of how deliberately and aggressively they tried to cover it up. That's where I think that the biggest part of this is less to do with what the crime was, but their diligence in trying to cover it up. That was what was brought up in the article as well, is how they deliberately tried to skate the NCAA and tried to hide as much as possible. They failed at it. Hilariously, terribly, they failed at it. That is where the true crime is trying to cover it up. But the whole point that I'm keep arguing with here is, how much does that really help you? That having signs is something, again, that is done across college football. It is not something that helps you. It's not something that helps you this much that you improve your winning percentage that extremely. It helps. It absolutely helps. Ohio State isn't innocent in this. They steal signs. Every team steals fucking signs.
Joe, I wholeheartedly disagree with you on that.
Just like every team tampers.
Okay, so you have Connor
violates every rule.
All right, that's bullshit.
The ones who do it the best are the ones who get caught.
Okay, but you know what I don't have, again, until you start providing it, is Connor Stallions telling the DC mentor, looking at the signs at Ohio State and saying, run right. He comes up to him, grabs him, says, run right.
I'm not doubting that happened.
Hold on, goddammit. You have him sending a double safety blitz into the run on a critical third down call. Critical third down call.
That operation is the same for every team that steals signs. That operation is the same for every team that steals signs.
You are too naive.
It's not hard to create dummy signals. It's not. If you know that the team you're playing is stealing signs, develop new signs. Confuse them.
Okay. It's not my responsibility on that either. But you can't also say that you don't have – Joe, even if you're saying the victim – Ohio State in this scenario, well, you need to do something better, honey.
It's not just Ohio State, first of all. That's my biggest problem with this whole thing.
Ohio State in this, hey, you know what? You did nothing wrong, but you need to change your ways.
First of all, wait. First of all, during this whole saga, wasn't it brought up that Ohio State was sharing signs with other teams in the Big Ten? Am I misremembering that? Is that not what was part of this whole thing that was brought up?
And you know good and goddamn well, hey, who reported that about Ryan Day and Ohio State? Oh, that's right, a Michigan alum. And just like what they were doing during the national championship run, they're going to defend this. What the big thing that we should probably be talking about is, what do you do with Sharon Moore? You said suspend him for the whole year. I got to be honest. Joe, if he's got a show cause, which was literally put in that article, then every other coach that has show causes, he better sit more than a year. I mean, think about this. Think about this for just one quick second.
Wait, hold on. The only thing is that the only argument it's slightly against that is, in that whoever's defending him, I don't know how that's going to work. The pushback on that is, theoretically, the punishment that would be delivered to Harbaugh essentially is going to get thrown on his head, because it's not just Sharon Moore. It's not only Sharon Moore.
No, and like I told you when he was hired, like I told you when Sharon Moore was hired, why would you hire anybody as the head coach of that staff when you have that shit that was going on? I know that they probably felt like that they did some backdoor politicking. Okay, Sharon, we ain't going to fire you. You're going to have to take the heat. But take the heat, and we're going to give you your first head coaching job.
That's why they kept him, because nobody would have wanted to step into this situation.
Oh, fine. Completely understand that. But you still, if you're wanting to progress, you still can't do that. I'm old enough to remember that there was a coach that would do something like that. His name was Matt Rule. And he did it at Baylor after Art Briles and all that shit happened. And then all of a sudden, Matt Rule became one of the biggest known names in all of the sport. All I am saying here to you is I don't know if it's not a fireable offense.
They're not going to fire
Michigan
him.
has to clean house.
They would. They would have done
when all of that shit with college.
They would have fired him when it happened. If it was
they wouldn't have. They've been covering it up too.
He won him a national title. Why would they fire him? They're not going to fire him. It's not a fireable offense.
Okay. Well, then you go down with the shit then. But here's what I will tell you. There have been other programs, specifically in the SEC, who they're not going to get, their interest level is not that high at the current moment, but then they look at all of their schools and the shit that the NCAA came down upon them, and this is probably worse to some extent than everything that everybody else was doing. So what? You paid players to get there. That's more of what people are all doing than anything versus what's going on right now in cheating to win games. Joe, this happened on field. Let me tell you this. This is my last point on this before we get to the Big 12. God, this is going to be an hour and 20 long hour show. Let me get to this very quickly.
Okay.
It also has been reported that Michigan, some of the coaching staff gave some of the coaching staff at South Carolina the Tennessee signs because Michigan thought that they were going to have to play Tennessee in the playoff. That was a potential contender. You legitimately, in that game with South Carolina versus Tennessee, have a quarterback that could have been a first-round pick if he doesn't tear his ACL in Hendon Hooker. If you're Hendon Hooker, explain everything to Hendon Hooker. If you're going to give down punishment, ask Hendon Hooker about it. Because, Joe, his entire career could have been lost as a potential first-round pick in that game.
Well, the only other response to that is that if you're going to be aggressive in punishing Michigan, you have to be aggressive in punishing any other team that benefited from this.
Fine.
That's my only take on that.
But do you disagree? Like, if this comes out that Michigan was sharing, and it for sure comes out that Michigan shared information with South Carolina about Tennessee because they thought Tennessee was going to be a playoff
should be punished. South Carolina.
Well, not only that, not South Carolina. If you're Hendon Hooker, then what? You knew when to send the backside blitz. You knew what our plays were. You knew what was going on here. Joe, as a parent, I would be more than pissed.
Well, what was I don't remember the exact play, so I just don't remember what happened on the play that he got hurt.
He checked to something. Okay, it was a fake pump right, and he was supposed to come back or something stupid. Okay, a hypo type of play. And then he got wrapped up in the knee or tried to get out, then tore his ACL, whatever.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. They blew the doors off what probably was the second best team in the SEC that year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not shocking. By the way, my dig at South Carolina before we move on to Big 12, I am not shocked that is what it was required of them to beat Tennessee, by the way. Because they hold by that. They hold by that goddamn game as proof of why Shane Beamer's a great coach.
Joe, Spencer Rattler had the best game of his life, or they cheated.
All right, let's get to Big 12. We went too long on this.
I know, but I'm going to tell you, I'm pissed off. As a college football fan, I'm pissed off.
I mean, I don't know what changes here. Everything was the same as when we argued about it the first.
No,
let's get to the Big 12. Let's get to the Big 12.
No, very quick. Last thing, swear to God.
Okay.
Now you have more proof, and it's evident that you have proof. the day of there being any innocency.
I don't think there was ever.
Yeah, but you think like a Gen Z. Are you Gen Z?
Technically, I think barely. I think I'm like the last year.
Oh, okay. All right. Joe, we go over to the Big 12. We start with the Big 12 here tonight in doing our conference picks, our power rankings. Now, our good friend Josh Pate told us to do this, so we're going to do it. Don't make ratings, make rankings. Power rankings instead of ratings. So we're going to do that. Here are our power rankings. Joe, we're going to start through. So this is a 16-team league. We're going to go 9 through 16 here in the first part of that. What is your 9 through 16 in your power rankings of the Big 12?
So I have got number 16, Arizona State, number 15, BYU, 14, Houston, 13, Cincinnati, 12, Baylor, 11, TCU, 10, Texas Tech, and 9, Iowa State. And then if you want to get to yours.
Yeah, West Virginia at 9, Colorado at 10, TCU at 11, Houston at 12, Baylor at 13. That kills me. Cincinnati at 14, Arizona State at 15, and BYU at 16. So, Joe, pretty much 12 through 16 for us, both of us, is pretty much the same there. I think it was 9, 10, and 11 that we disagreed on.
So the only one that why are you so low on West Virginia? And I know that you were kind of poo-pooing on them when we did the preview. What's the full thought here? Because I still disagree on that.
I told you in the very beginning, 4 through 9, put them where you want. Put them where you want.
Well, I got to disagree with that because you got West Virginia really low. I mean, you've got them at 9. I have them at 6. I mean, that's a pretty
Joe,
big difference.
When we talked about West Virginia and the West Virginia fans hated us for this, you got a lot of things that you're rolling in and out of that roster. And like we talked about, and the fans hated us for this, Joe, you turn some of the least sack production in the country. You're like 129th. Okay, well, so you go into a position group, okay, where I think Texas Tech offensively, Joe, could score on them. I'm more high on Texas Tech than you are. But
the biggest reason –
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your point. I cut you off.
Put 4 through 9 wherever you want. In this conference, I don't care. But at the same time, of all those teams that I'll look through 4 through 9, I don't know about them the most. I'm sketchy on them the most. That's how I feel about all that.
I'm going to keep supporting West Virginia because I think at the end of the day, they're bringing back like their whole offense and most of their offensive line. I know that they're losing their starting center who moved on to the NFL and he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, which was a great fit. But I think Wyatt Milam, that whole group, most of their top receivers who hit the ground running at the second half of the season, the run game's really strong. And I think that Garrett Green, second year as a starter, is going to be big for them. So I'm sticking by him, man. If they were able to do what they did with a lot of the guys coming back last year and vastly outperform expectations, finishing in the top 7 is totally doable for them.
I kind of feel like you have Iowa State a little too low, if I'm being honest. The reason why I think that you have my West Virginia for you is your Iowa State for me. Mm-hmm. Joe, that offense might be rolling. And look, you turn back that much production, Joe. You're talking about potentially 3,000-yard receivers, a running back that went over 1,000 yards last year. I'm not sold that bent hat Matt Campbell might not do some good in the Big 12 this year. Now, defensively, I got no clue what's going to go on there. None. All right. But offensively, they were pretty stacked, and they're off. Here's the crazy thing. They're one of the best offenses in this conference.
I think that they're a good offense. I wouldn't necessarily put them in the bucket of one of the best offenses because we're going to talk about UCF in a second.
In this conference?
In this conference, there's like 6 teams that are better than them. I think that they had a really good offense, a good, like slightly above average offense last year. And I know that it's good to have Becht coming back.
Gotta get the running game going.
Yeah, gotta get there. I don't know. I don't know if I can totally. Iowa State's just always middle of the pack. I can't. They are never going to get back to that year where they had Purdy and they had Breece Hall and they were unbelievable. They were so freaking good. Those are 2 guys that are one's a quarterback who started in a Super Bowl, and the other is a running back on one of the better teams in the AFC. Breece Hall is a really dynamic running back. They don't have any of those guys on this roster. And the rest of the competition that they're going to be facing off with is going to be really difficult.
Joe, last year, they started out of the gate really bad. If you remember, they lost to Iowa by a touchdown. They lost to Ohio by 3. Okay,
Yeah,
so that 7-6 looks a lot worse. Joe, they beat Oklahoma State last year. They beat TCU last year. They beat Cincinnati last year. They beat Baylor last year. They're a touchdown away against Kansas, number 22 Kansas. Oh, by the way, they beat Kansas State a year ago, and that offense does return.
Well, that was
so if you're going to tell me that the team that was down the stretch that won 7 of the last 9, okay, Joe, the 2 teams that they lost to last year, Oklahoma, Texas, see you later, buddy. They're not here anymore. So you're now going to have to convince me that you putting them at 9 when, Joe, the 2 biggest, down the 9-game stretch, those teams aren't here anymore. And by the way, they were returning a lot of these dudes.
I just don't love doing the whole, well, look how they finished when they started like absolute shit. Like they couldn't have started any worse than they could have started.
Fair.
They lost to Iowa, who couldn't score, and then they lost to Ohio.
Okay.
Ohio. It's an indictment on Matt Campbell.
I'm glad you brought that up. Why didn't you do that to Oklahoma State then?
Oklahoma State has one of the best running backs in the country.
And
they bring back a far more productive and explosive offense than Iowa State's.
You do know, though, that if you just blanked out the team that we were talking about, everything that you just said last would have been talking about Oklahoma State.
I don't have a Heisman Trophy candidate. I don't have a Heisman Trophy candidate and potential first-round pick at running back.
Okay. But I'm not.
That's important.
I'm not trying to argue Oklahoma State because I got them at number 2. All I am saying here, legitimately, all I am saying is that you do have a lot of production returning. That's why I put them over West Virginia.
I'm much higher on West Virginia. You want me to read my?
Yeah. What is your 1 through 8?
Number 8, I got Colorado. Number 7, UCF. Number 6, West Virginia. Number 5, Arizona. 4, Oklahoma State. 3, Kansas. 2, Kansas State. Ooh, voice crack there. And then all this yelling you have me doing today. And then number 1 is Utah.
So we both have Utah winning it here. So my number 1, Utah. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Tied at 4, Iowa State, UCF. That was a bit of a hot take by me. I know that you're going to debate that. Kansas, Arizona, and Texas Tech round out my top 8 here, Joe. Go ahead. What do you hate of mine? Why is it UCF?
I don't hate UCF. I think that UCF is going to take a huge step forward. I'm a KJ Jefferson fan, and I know that their running back room is really, really strong. But there are so many more complete teams, and there's so many more teams that I feel like I have more tangible evidence of what they're going to be this upcoming season than for UCF. UCF has done some tremendous things to set themselves up for success in a couple of years. But I feel like there's still this G5 team that's building. They're not there yet. I feel like that their offensive line, their defensive line, it still feels like it's a little bit of at a G5 level.
Don't you ever disrespect the 2017 national champions again, ever like that, sir.
Okay. All right. Oh, suddenly you're a supporter of UCF. Do I not recall that they played just for my Louisiana State University? Do I not recall
just for my calls here? Just for my calls. Malachi Lawrence, their defensive end, who had 7.5 sacks last year, returns. Joe, they might have the nastiest defensive line returning in this conference. They got some dudes now. Hey.
No, they don't.
Dude, Lee Hunter as a nose tackle.
His defensive line is a lot better.
Okay, I said one of. I didn't say the best. I said one of the best. Can you hear?
No, I'm just going to debate with you.
Legitimately, Lee Hunter, who had 69 tackles as a nose tackle, 11 tackles for loss, and you have Malachi Lawrence returning. Now, they have to go in the portal and get 4 new linebackers. I understand that whole room had to be revamped after last year. Joe, defensively, they were really bad in the middle of their defense, specifically at linebacker, and it killed them over and over and over and over and over again. UCF's linebacking unit last year legitimately was first in tackles missed. So they go in the portal and they get a whole new unit. That D-line had hella production last year. Here's my thing, though. Joe, they got speed at wide receiver. Malzahn, I can't explain it. Hear me and hear me now. Every time Malzahn has a 6-6, 7-6 type of season, every year he bounces back. It's how he never gets fired really anywhere. He did it at Auburn for a decade. He legitimately did it at Auburn for a decade.
Every time this is a very different circumstance, though.
No.
Yes,
got speed at wide receiver. His tight end might be the most athletic tight end. Yes, I said it in the conference. They had a lot of O-line production returning, and they are going to increase what they had at quarterback a year ago. Joe, John Rice Plumlee, stinky. Poo-poo. Bad.
He's not. John Rice Plumlee was the whole reason why they stayed in games last year. You crapping on him is not going to – no, stop it.
He had 4 turnovers in clutch situations last year. We called it the Plumlee.
Nobody called it that. I think that this circumstance is very –
because I'm a UCF fan today.
This circumstance is very different than anything that Malzahn has encountered because he is transitioning a G5 team into a Power 4 program. They had a couple of nice games and a couple of nice upsets last year. And you pointed out, yes, they've got explosive talent. I think KJ Jefferson's going to be a great player this year. Absolutely. He is getting under-recognized. And I think a lot of people even forget that he landed and ended up at UCF. But we need to acknowledge how hard it is to go from a G5 to a P4. It is a long process.
When you get dudes like KJ Jefferson in that offensive line and that running back core.
KJ Jefferson also, I don't think that this offensive line is as good as you're making it out to be. Like
they returned 4 guys off of a running back that had 1,400 yards last year.
Just because they bring back 4 guys doesn't mean that they're all 4 great
Georgia,
linemen.
why you talked about their offensive line? Why you talked about LSU's offensive line this year?
Because they're Power 4 linemen that were top recruits. What, like you're telling me that suddenly having top recruits doesn't mean anything when you've screamed at me about how Notre Dame doesn't get enough
running back having 1,400 yards rushing last year.
They have got a fantastic running back room, and I think that Tony Boone is going to be great for them.
Hot take, you ready? Mm-hmm. KJ Jefferson has more weapons and more offensive production at UCF than he did at Arkansas. KJ Jefferson.
That's not going to take that much for him to do. He's going against Big 12 defenses.
Hold on. He was throwing to a white kid wide receiver with the last name of Tesla. Elon Musk gave him an NIL deal. Are you kidding me?
He's going up against much weaker defenses. That's not going to take very much for him to accomplish.
And he's got better production and better talent around him. You know that.
I texted you this. You know what the reason why you picked this is? SEC quarterback. That was you just saw SEC quarterback and you circled him. That was what it was. That's all you did. It's okay. The bias bleeds into everything that we talk about.
How am I biased?
What do you mean? How are you biased?
So KJ Jefferson with three freshman linemen. Y'all, let me tell you this. You know what y'all do? Let me tell you what y'all do. You praise Spencer Rattler for having a really bad line at South Carolina. Meanwhile, you don't do it for KJ Jefferson, and they both statistically are about the same.
I'm not crapping on KJ Jefferson. I'm a big KJ Jefferson supporter. I'm not gonna sit here.
Joe, is he the second best quarterback in that league, in that conference?
No.
Who's the second?
He's not. It would, for me, it would go Shedeur Sanders. It would go Cam Rising, and then after that,
is Cam Rising going to be healthy?
And then Noah Fafita. I would go Noah Fafita 3.
Okay, fair. Is he top 4?
Yeah, I'd say he's top 4.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anyone who. Yeah, no, Jalen Daniels. I'd put Jalen Daniels over him.
I'm not putting Jalen Daniels on any list until he plays.
Jalen Daniels was as available as KJ Jefferson has been over the past couple of years.
KJ Jefferson played 13 games last year.
He played.
So what are you going to talk? I mean, 12
Why
games. They didn't make it to a bowl game. He played in every single game that they were in. Please go look at it. Mm-hmm.
God, he's 23. Jeez, he's so much older
old
than I thought he was.
And he played in how many games last year?
I'm mixing up the year prior where he barely played and he was.
Yeah, KJ going to lead him. All right, you want to get to our top 3 here, or do you want to get to Colorado? Let's get to Colorado very quickly. All right, so I had Colorado at 10. You had Colorado where in your top 8, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, you had him at 8. I had him at 10. Joe, we're putting Colorado in the middle of the pack, so about 7-5, 8-4. I mean, if you're going to put them at 8, they got to go 7-5, 8-4 this year.
Look, at the end of the day, and I'm apparently more optimistic than you are, in a league like the Big 12, where there is a separation to some extent, a lot of these rosters are the same. If you have 2 potential top 10 picks, you're going to be able to win games that are close, that are coming down to the wire. I know that we talked so much about the roster turnover, but Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders are heads above. Travis Hunter, without a doubt, is the best cornerback in this conference, and it's not even close. And
fair.
Shedeur Sanders is good enough to win them football games if this offensive line holds up just a little bit better than it did last year. I'm pretty bought in on them being a strong, competitive team. And that 8 spot that I have them at, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't finish as good as 5 or maybe even 4. They bring back a lot more production than you think. It just so happens a lot of that production comes from Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
Well, then you're saying that they're going to be 8-4.
Yeah, I think that that's a totally attainable, realistic goal for them to reach.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
I mean, finally, when you have guys that talented, and this isn't the SEC that they're playing in, you would have to have a catastrophic meltdown, which is possible, totally possible.
I have them going 7-5, 6-6.
I think they're a little bit better than that.
All right. I don't. We'll see. Let's get to the top 3 here. I'm not going to go there with Colorado. You're going to have to prove that you'll actually run the football.
Okay.
For me. Yeah. Okay. All right, Joe, let's go 3 through 1 here. We both have Utah winning the conference, but you have a little bit more of a shakeup than I do. You have Kansas State at 2, Kansas at number 3, and Oklahoma State at number 4, where I have Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State in my top 3. Joe, why are you so high on Kansas?
I know it's a big fat if, and it's a little bit risky to bet on, but if Jalen Daniels plays most of the season this upcoming year, they have the ability to have the most productive offense in the conference. Like, no doubt about it. Their combination of Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels in that veer and shoot offense, the way that they run it, it is a perfect combination. And we see how dynamic and hard to stop it is when he's on the field. It's a big if. It's a bit of a risk. I'm going to completely admit that. I know your counterpoint is going to be, oh, does he finish the season? Yeah, that's a huge question mark. It's a huge question mark. You almost don't even need to bring it up. But I think if he does, and I'm hoping that he does, and he plays the whole year, they're going to be too hard to keep up with. Defensively, kind of leaves a little bit to be desired. Austin Booker was a premier pass rusher for them, and he moved on to the Chicago Bears. I think that they're just one of those teams that's going to be like a fast break offense. It's going to just be too hard to keep up with.
Look, I love Lance Leipold. I think he's a hard-nosed, tough coach. Really, I do. I think I love that Kansas is putting all of that money into football. However, Joe, I'm not sold yet. And you said it's a big if, so then I think that there's something in the back of your mind that tells you, okay, well, yeah, I probably have the same thought if shit goes sour. He's got to stay healthy. Yeah. You just talked about KJ Jefferson not staying healthy. Well, he played 12 games last year. Here's the thing. KJ Jefferson played more games last year in 1 year than Jalen Daniels has done in 3. Okay, so I look at that and say, we all get hyped up for Kansas. Okay, we all get hyped up. Oh, they're winning early. They beat a Big Ten team early on the road like Illinois last year. Here come the Jayhawks. then he goes down, and then all hell breaks loose and they get their shit kicked in. That's how it's been going for them. And it's happened the last 2 years. I don't think it's wrong to say that for me, that we got to come to a place where, like, okay, we think that you can do it as a staff. Even though you're replacing your OC, we have a lot of faith in Lance Leipold. You cannot, for me, I cannot put them there, mainly due to the fact that you just got to prove it. Now, I don't have them too much further than you, though, but you got to prove something to me.
That's fair, but at the same time, if they were able to finish as strongly as they did last year, not the top of the conference, but close to the top of the conference, with Jason Bean starting for them, and I know he's gone now, but if you were able to do that with your backup leading the way, what can you accomplish if Daniel starts? I think that there could be a huge step forward for them. And again, it's a bit of a risk. I want to talk about Oklahoma State really quickly here. Okay. I think that you're in on them for all the right reasons. Outside Ollie Gordon, who I'm in love with, he's my favorite running back in the country. He's one of the most exciting players to watch. Brendan Presley and Rashad Owens combined for almost 1,900 yards last year. They are one of the best returning receiver duos in the conference. As much as we gripe about Alan Bowman just being a boneheaded decision maker, he still doesn't have to do a ton of work because of how good this offense is and the weapons around him, and a lot of the offensive line is coming back. But where I have pause why I can't put them top two, that secondary, I have no idea if it's improving or not, was 123rd last year. 123rd. It's going to take a lot for them to improve. A lot. To go up from 123. And I know that they were in the championship game being that bad at stopping the pass. That what does it require for them to just improve a little bit? How high can they go? I don't know, man. I'm just a little bit worried there.
So I have Oklahoma State at 2. Joe has them at 4, just for clarity here. I think that they're going to be better throwing the football. Okay, I do think Bowman because Joe, he can't get much worse. He completes a couple more passes here and there. Look, well, you're right. And you know what? I still have games of him throwing for over 300. But you know what the bad thing of it is? Joe, I also remember him carving up in the second half a Texas defense. Blake, they were getting their asses beat.
No,
Joe,
don't. You can't use that as an example.
Hold on.
You can't use that as an example.
Joe, in the third quarter, he was 12 for 12 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns.
What was the score of that game at the time when he did
Is it his fault that his defense? You just elected a Heisman Trophy winner whose defense was shit.
Garbage time stats are so. I don't care about garbage time stats.
Okay,
Those
I don't
mean nothing to me.
Whatever. Texas secondary was still last too. The bottom line is for me here, I think that they can only get better offensively. I think they brought in enough pieces. I am projecting Gundy year one of a new Big 12 to be in the fight. You can't convince me that Joe, they were better than Oklahoma last year. Let's just call it what they were better than Oklahoma a year ago.
They beat Oklahoma at home, but we need to just remind ourselves of the teams this is where I think that there is a little bit of misperception. They're a really good football team, but the teams that they beat the shit out of, they did beat Kansas State and Oklahoma. Those are really impressive wins that they had. They beat up on Arizona State. They beat up on Cincinnati and Houston and BYU in that final stretch.
Did those teams leave the conference?
No, they didn't leave the conference. What I'm trying to get at is I think that their schedule's tougher this year. Okay, I think that they're going to have to deal with a lot more.
They got Utah and Kansas State You're right. They have Utah and Kansas State in the beginning of their schedule, along with Arkansas. Joe, they're going 2-1 in that. They're going to go 2-1 in that. You watch, because I think that they're better than Arkansas. I think they're beating Arkansas. I have them losing to Utah. Okay, Joe, then they play Kansas State. And I think that they will come back and respond and win that game. But, Joe, here's the bottom line for me.
They're not beating Kansas
State.
So
look down their schedule after they play those four opening games in the beginning. They are going to run through some of these teams offensively. Ollie Gordon is going to run through the rest of that schedule.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Okay, so even at worst, Joe, hold on one second. Even at worst, they go 2-2 in the very beginning of splitting Arkansas and that 4-game stretch, Arkansas, Kansas State, Utah, whatever, that they had in the beginning there. Joe, I see 8 straight wins there. I think that they have a favorable schedule, whether we like it or not. As crazy as it sounds, they play the early team. They play the really good teams early, the really bad teams late. Joe, what are we going to do at the end of the year?
But how do we? Are we guaranteeing though that they're not going to have a game like UCF again?
Well, I got UCF in my 4.
Well, no. I'm saying that last year that they got smoked
You mean
by
South
UCF.
Alabama?
No, against UCF in the middle of the season, they lost like 45-3. You don't remember that game?
Yeah.
They got their asses kicked.
Yeah, they got their asses
UCF wasn't
kicked.
any good. Like, what if they do?
Yeah.
I don't have their schedule in front of me, but
No, they did get beat by 45-3 to UCF. You're correct.
I just feel really uneasy about that secondary, man. That was I think the worst secondary in the conference. If they were 123rd.
Yeah, they were. Well, them in Texas were right there competing against one another. So we'll see. I just have them higher than you do, and you got Kansas State. So let's get to them. Joe, I think Avery Johnson is one of the best quarterbacks, most athletic quarterback in this conference. He's a year 1 quarterback going into this as a starter. You're replacing an offensive coordinator. I know that Kansas State at times has been good. They have a stable head coach. They've been fine. I'm not 1,000% sold that if couple of these games get in a shootout, that Avery Johnson can throw you into a win. I'm not sold on that yet. Maybe he can. And maybe I'm just like skeptical and wanting to see. Maybe he can. I don't know. I like the kid a lot. But Joe, we talk about this Utah team. We talk about this Oklahoma State team. Is he ready to take over those teams? Is why I'm not willing to put them in the conference championship for me.
Well, the skepticism you have for Avery Johnson is the same level of skepticism that I have for that Oklahoma State secondary. And I feel like at the very least, I've got a young budding prospect.
Completely different position, though.
They're still huge, massive question marks. But I at least can feel confident that if he's not as great as a passer as he needs to be, this is going to be one of the best rushing attacks in the country. DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards, Avery Johnson. All three of those guys are going to create a very difficult to stop rushing attack. They can do so many creative things that, like we saw last year in the Pop-Tart Bowl and the end stretch of the year. And I trust Chris Kleiman, man. I was a little disappointed in how they played in some games last year, but I think that Chris Kleiman, now that he's got a guy that he can work with that fits the style of quarterback that he's trying to build for the future, I think that the ceiling is so high for them in 2024.
I'm not. Look, I think they're going to be a really good team. I think Avery Johnson, we're going to sit here and say, Joey's going to make that play, he's going to make this play, and we're going to go ooh and ah, and at the end of it, they lost. Like, I think that we're going to look at Kansas State as a team that's like, oh, well.
I'd rather bet on upside when we've got athletes like Avery Johnson than just to bank on a team that
you mean like you did with Kansas?
Kansas is another team that is upside. This is such an insanely long show. I'm like losing steam here. Sorry, I'm like completely out of steam at the end of the show. An hour and 10 minutes is long as shit.
I'm focused. I'm locked in and ready to go. We still got to talk about Utah.
All right, you want to talk about Utah?
Do you have somewhere to be? Do you have like a girlfriend?
No, I'm so out of juice right now. I can't explain it.
That's what she said.
It's been a long fucking day.
Let's get to Utah. Joe, we both have Utah winning our Big 12 championship game. Excuse me. Your thoughts on Utah going into our both of us picking them to win the conference, which means we will have to put them as a top 4 seed in our playoff.
Yeah, I think that the biggest advantage that they have is they're stepping into a situation where they're unlike anything that any of these teams have faced against. None of the teams in the Big 12 have gone against a team like Utah's defense and as aggressive and hard-nosed as they're going to be on both lines of scrimmage. I think it's going to be a tough out for a lot of these teams. They're used to just trying to outscore opponents. Utah is going to punch a lot of teams in the mouth, and they're not going to be able to keep up with them. And the biggest part of this is that Cam Rising has played a crap load of football, and he's won a Pac-12 championship game. He knows what it takes to win.
They won 2. He's won 2, if I'm not mistaken. Did he not?
He's a winner. He has won and accomplished a ton, and that is only going to help him down the stretch.
This is also their head man's last year. What a lot of people think. Remember, they did the head coach in waiting thing or whatever. at Utah. Joe, I think you're right. I think that there's none of these teams have faced a team like Utah. Defensively, they're going to be sound. Offensively, they're going to be so much better. It's kind of inevitable to me. I think they're going to bully some of these teams, Joe, that we haven't seen teams bullied in a while. And I think the recruiting part of that, the developmental part of that is going to really take shape late in games. Like, Joe, I would not be surprised if you start seeing Utah, like maybe games, are close in the middle of it, but then they start running it away from teams. So they're just running it right down their throat. I think I don't want to say that Utah is a slam dunk because I think anything can happen in the Big 12. And I'll talk about that in just a quick second. I just think that they have the best staff. I think they have the best roster. And it's why I'm picking them to be a playoff team. Last thing for me, though, can I tell you, when we were putting this list together and I was going through all my notes, I actually, when I texted you yesterday, was really diving deep into this. Joe, one of my pencil hit number one that I almost didn't put Utah because I am very wary of the Cam Rising thing. I look, as someone who has, stay with me, someone who has had two knee surgeries. When you're talking about not coming back and not being ready within 14 months, something's very wrong. But something is very wrong. Whether they want to hide it or not, something is very wrong. You can't keep telling me that it's all about the knee. Now, could there have been some stuff behind the scenes? Maybe they were out of and like, hey, Cam, let's take a medical red shirt and come back and regroup here. I don't know. But I'm telling you, I'm wary early. I really want to see how he looks early in games.
I think it's more likely of that being
not happening than happening.
Well, that they just didn't think that they – I think it's more likely that they didn't think that they were going to win the conference and they didn't want to just throw him in there midseason and just waste his final year of eligibility. And if they could have milked him for one more year, they were going to take advantage of that. Because if there was something really wrong with him, wouldn't they turn to a backup? Wouldn't he be done playing? He's been playing for 1 million years.
I don't know.
Why would they risk trotting him out there?
I mean, you want to run the pig farmer out there again?
He's not on the team anymore.
I know he's not, but I'm just saying. I don't think they have anybody. And maybe they did go after – I don't think they went after anybody in the portal.
No, they brought in Sam Heward, who was a former 5-star.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well,
so they have a potentially decent backup if something does go wrong, but I don't know. I'm not worried about that. I think that decision to not play him was pretty deliberate.
All right. Well, Joe's delirious. He's got to get to his bedtime.
All right, shut up.
No, you just have a girlfriend you got to FaceTime. I just want to sit here and talk sports.
No, I don't. I don't. I'm just long freaking weekend. I didn't take any breaks.
I hear you. All right, well, tomorrow we'll get to the ACC here. Joe, I think we're going to shake some shit up tomorrow when we do our ACC power rankings.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
I have a very good feeling that Florida State fans are going to hate me by the end of tomorrow.
We'll save it for tomorrow.
See y'all then. Y'all have a good one. Peace.